The midnight offer, the blue light from Nora Chen's laptop screen, painted harsh shadows across her exhausted face as she stared at the eviction notice taped to her apartment door. 3 months behind on rent, maxed out credit cards, and surviving on instant noodles. This wasn't exactly the life she'd envisioned when she graduated summa cum laude with her computer science degree. Her fingers moved mechanically across the keyboard, debugging code for yet another freelance project that would barely cover her utilities. The client would probably complain about the price anyway, just like they always did. 26 years old, brilliant enough to spot security vulnerabilities that seasoned professionals missed, yet somehow invisible to every major tech company in the city. The email notification chimed at exactly 2:17 a.m. from recruitmentannexuscorp.com. Subject: Senior Cybersecurity Architect position. Immediate start. Nora's finger hovered over the delete button. Spam, obviously. Nexus Corporation was the kind of company that hired from Harvard and MIT, not from desperate freelancers working out-of-studio apartments in Queens. But curiosity won over cynicism, and she clicked open. Miss Chen, your work on the Hartwell insurance penetration testing caught our attention. We have an immediate opening for a senior cybersecurity architect position, reporting directly to our Chief Technology Officer. Starting salary, $180,000 annually, plus benefits and equity options. If interested, please respond within 24 hours. Respectfully, V-Cross CEO, Nexus Corporation. Nora read it 3 times before the words sank in. Hartwell Insurance. That had been a small contract 6 months ago, barely worth mentioning on her resume. How had anyone at Nexus even heard about it? She grabbed her phone with trembling hands and Googled Vincent Cross. The search results painted a picture of tech royalty. 34 years old, built Nexus from a garage startup into a billion-dollar empire specializing in corporate security solutions. His company's software protected everything from banking systems to government databases. Photos showed a man with sharp features and intense dark eyes that seemed to look straight through the camera. Her phone rang, making her jump. Unknown number. Miss Chen. The voice was smooth, cultured, with just a hint of an accent she couldn't place. I hope I'm not calling too late, Mr. Cross. Her voice came out as a whisper. I trust you received my email. I'm calling because time is rather critical. We've had a security breach. Someone managed to infiltrate our client database, using techniques remarkably similar to your Hartwell approach. I need someone with your particular skill set to help us understand how. Nora's mind raced. A real job, with a real salary, at a real company. It felt too good to be true. Sir, I appreciate the offer, but I should mention that I don't have experience with enterprise-level security systems. Most of my work has been small contracts. Miss Chen, may I be frank with you? His tone shifted, becoming more intimate. I've been following your career for some time. Your rejection from Meridian Systems, the cancelled interview at TechFlow, the position at Data Secure that mysteriously disappeared after you'd already been verbally offered the job. Do you ever wonder why someone with your capabilities keeps getting overlooked? A chill ran down her spine. How could he possibly know about those failures? She'd never made them public, never even told her family about most of them. I'm not sure what you're implying. I'm implying that the tech industry can be surprisingly small, and sometimes the right opportunity requires the right timing. This is your timing, Nora. The question is whether you're ready to step into a larger world. Through her window, she could see the city lights twinkling like false stars. Somewhere out there, in glass towers and corner offices, people were making decisions that shaped the world, while she scraped by on the margins. The eviction notice crinkled as she shifted in her chair. What exactly would the position involve? Fascinating work, We're developing next-generation behavioral prediction algorithms. Imagine being able to prevent cyber attacks before they happen, stop data theft before sensitive information gets compromised. Your job would be to test our systems, find their weaknesses, make them stronger. You'd be protecting businesses, governments, ordinary people from digital threats they don't even know exist. It sounded noble, important, the kind of work she'd dreamed of doing since her first programming class. And this would be based in New York. Our headquarters, yes. 42nd floor, overlooking Central Park. Your own office, your own team, resources you've never had access to before. He paused, and she could hear the smile in his voice. Nora, I'm offering you the chance to do work that matters, with people who will appreciate your talents. All I need is your commitment. She looked around her cramped apartment, at the stack of bills on her kitchen table, at her reflection in the dark window, young woman with intelligent eyes and clothes that had seen better days, trapped in a life too small for her ambitions. When would you need an answer? Now. The word hung in the air between them like a challenge. Nora closed her eyes, thinking of her mother working double shifts at the hospital, her younger sister starting college in the fall with no money for tuition, all the doors that had been slammed in her face by companies that never bothered to see what she could do. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I accept. Excellent. A car will pick you up at 8 a.m. sharp. Wear something professional. You'll be meeting the team immediately. And Nora, his voice dropped to something almost tender. Welcome to Nexus Corporation. I have a feeling you're going to love it here. The line went dead, leaving her staring at her phone in the sudden silence. Outside, the city hummed with late-night energy, oblivious to the fact that her entire life had just changed with a single conversation. She should have felt excited, relieved, victorious. Instead, as she finally crawled into bed 3 hours later, she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just made a deal with the devil. The glass tower Vincent Cross stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office, watching the ant-like figures scurry across the street 42 stories below. His reflection stared back at him, sharp jawline, dark hair perfectly styled, eyes that had been described by Fortune magazine as penetrating enough to see through corporate lies and financial smokescreens. What they didn't know was that those same eyes had been watching Nora Chen for 18 months. The surveillance. Footage on his secondary monitor showed her leaving her apartment building, climbing into the black sedan he'd sent. She wore a navy blazer that was probably borrowed, her dark hair pulled back in a professional bun that couldn't quite hide her nervousness. Perfect. Vulnerability made people malleable. Sir? His assistant, Jessica Winters, appeared in the doorway, with her usual crisp efficiency. Miss Chen has arrived. Should I escort her up? Give her 10 minutes in the lobby first. Let her absorb the environment. Vincent turned from the window, adjusting his Italian silk tie. Everything had to be perfect for this moment, the culmination of a carefully orchestrated campaign to isolate and recruit the most talented cybersecurity mind he'd ever encountered. The Nexus lobby had been designed specifically for intimidation. Soaring marble columns, digital art installations that shifted like living things, and a reception desk that looked carved from a single piece of black stone. Security guards in tailored suits stood at strategic positions, their earpieces and alert postures suggesting this was far more than a typical tech company. Vincent had discovered Nora during a routine analysis of emerging talent in the cybersecurity field. Her code was elegant, intuitive, almost artistic in its efficiency, but more importantly, she was isolated, desperate, and possessed an ethical flexibility that could be shaped with the right pressure. The Hartwell insurance job had been his first test, a staged penetration testing contract designed to showcase her abilities while simultaneously demonstrating her willingness to exploit vulnerabilities for money. When she'd refused additional payment for services beyond the original scope, he'd known she was special. Phase 2 had involved systematically destroying her career prospects. A word to the right hiring manager here, a negative reference there, carefully timed budget cuts that eliminated positions she'd been promised, all orchestrated to ensure she remained available when he was ready. "Sir, she's ready for you now." Vincent settled behind his desk as the elevator doors opened directly into his office. Nora stepped out, her eyes widening as she took in the space. The panoramic view of Central Park, the walls lined with awards and patents, the subtle displays of wealth and power that established immediate hierarchy. "Miss Chen, welcome to Nexus." He stood, extending his hand. Her grip was firm but brief, professional distance masking what he recognized as overwhelming awe. "I trust the accommodations meet with your approval?" "It's impressive." She remained standing, despite his gesture toward the chair across from his desk, a small act of defiance that intrigued him. "Please sit. We have much to discuss." This time, it wasn't a request, and she complied. "I imagine you have questions about your new position." "Several, actually. Your email mentioned a security breach, but I couldn't find any news reports about problems at Nexus Corporation." "Smart girl." Vincent smiled, allowing a hint of admiration to show. "Because there weren't any. The breach I referenced was theoretical, a vulnerability assessment we conduct regularly to stay ahead of potential threats. Your job will be to think like our enemies, to find weaknesses in our systems before they do." He activated the holographic display built into his desk, showing her a three-dimensional map of interconnected networks. "This is our current client portfolio. Banks, government agencies, healthcare systems, social media platforms. Over 2 billion people interact daily with systems we protect." Nora leaned forward, studying the display with the intense focus he'd observed in her surveillance footage. "The scope is incredible, but why me? I'm sure you have teams of experienced professionals already." "Experience can be a liability. It creates blind spots, makes people follow predictable patterns. You see things differently, approach problems from angles others miss. The Hartwell job proved that." "About that, how exactly did you hear about my work there? It was a small contract, hardly noteworthy." Vincent paused, pretending to consider how much to reveal. The art of manipulation lay in offering just enough truth to build trust while concealing the larger deception. "We maintain monitoring systems across the industry. When someone demonstrates exceptional capability, we take notice. Your solution to their authentication bypass was elegant. Monitoring systems, recruitment tools. Think of them as talent scouts for the digital age." He stood, moving around the desk to stand beside her chair. Close enough to project authority, far enough to avoid triggering her defensive instincts. "Nora, may I speak candidly?" She nodded, though he noticed her posture tightening slightly. "You're brilliant. Possibly the most naturally gifted analyst I've encountered, but brilliance without opportunity is just frustration. How many companies have passed you over? How many doors have been closed despite your qualifications?" Her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Several, because they couldn't see past their preconceptions. Young, female, lacking the right connections or prestigious background, they saw limitations where I see potential." He returned to his chair, maintaining eye contact. "I'm offering you something those other companies couldn't. The resources to reach your full potential. And in return, loyalty, discretion, complete commitment to our mission." The words carried weight, implied consequences that he didn't need to articulate. "The work we do here shapes the future of digital security. It requires people who understand that sometimes ethical boundaries must be flexible in service of a greater good. For a moment her mask slipped, and he saw the hunger underneath, years of rejection and financial struggle condensed into raw ambition. This was the moment, the psychological lever he'd been building toward for months. Your starting salary will be deposited into your account today. Consider it a signing bonus, proof that I invest in people I believe in. He slid a tablet across the desk, showing her bank balance, now reflecting a number that would change her life immediately. Nora stared at the screen, her breath catching slightly. This is more than generous. It's what you're worth. Finally, someone recognizing your true value. Vincent leaned back, watching emotions play across her face. So, shall we discuss your first assignment? Part 3. The digital prison. Marcus Webb hunched over his laptop in the corner booth of an all-night diner, 3 cups of cold coffee and a growing sense of paranoia keeping him alert. The neon sign outside flickered erratically, casting intermittent red shadows across the screen, where he'd been documenting evidence for the past 6 months. 2 years ago, he'd been Nexus Corporation's head of ethical compliance, believing he was helping build a safer digital world. Now he was a ghost, living under a false identity and surviving on encrypted cryptocurrency payments from a handful of journalists brave enough to investigate Vincent Cross's empire. His phone vibrated with an encrypted message. New hire started. Today, young woman, cybersecurity background, name Nora Chen. Marcus felt his stomach clench. Another brilliant mind about to be corrupted, another life Vincent would reshape to serve his twisted vision. He'd watched it happen dozens of times. Talented people lured in with generous salaries and noble missions, only to discover they were building tools for surveillance and control. The waitress, a tired woman in her 50s, refilled his coffee without being asked. She'd stopped trying to make conversation weeks ago, accepting that the thin man in the corner booth was fighting demons she couldn't see. Marcus opened a new terminal window and began typing, Nexus Corporation, Internal Memo Project Mirror. Classified Level 5, from V-Cross to Development Team, Alpha RE, Behavioral Prediction Algorithm Enhancement Phase, 3 Implementation proceeding on schedule. Current dataset includes 847 million individual profiles, with real-time behavioral modeling accuracy at 94.7%. Integration with client social media platforms complete. Note, subject compliance rates increase significantly when personal pressure points are identified and leveraged. Recommend expanding psychological profiling parameters to include family relationships, financial vulnerabilities, and career ambitions. He'd stolen this memo during his final week at Nexus, along with hundreds of others documenting the company's true purpose. What the public saw as cutting-edge cybersecurity was actually the foundation of a surveillance network that could predict and manipulate human behavior on a massive scale. Marcus pulled up Nora's file, one of dozens he'd been tracking as potential Nexus targets. MIT graduate, financial difficulties, family obligations that created leverage points. Her younger sister needed tuition money. Her mother worked double shifts to pay medical bills. Perfect ingredients for Vincent's recruitment process. His encrypted phone buzzed again. Can you get to her before it's too late? The heart of darkness, Detective Rosa Martinez sat in her unmarked sedan across from the Madison Avenue coffee shop, watching through binoculars as 2 figures met at a corner table. 6 months of surveillance had taught her to recognize the body language of conspiracy, the furtive glances, the envelope passed with studied casualness, the immediate separation that followed such meetings. Marcus Webb was getting desperate, and desperate people made mistakes. Rosa had been tracking the activities of Nexus Corporation for 3 years, ever since a pattern of mysterious deaths and ruined lives had emerged among people who'd attempted to expose corporate malfeasance, journalists who'd committed suicide after their stories were killed. Scientists who'd suffered nervous breakdowns just before testifying about environmental cover-ups. Activists who'd abandoned their causes after family members experienced unfortunate accidents. The pattern was too precise to be coincidental, too sophisticated to be the work of traditional corporate intimidation. Someone was using advanced psychological profiling to identify and neutralize threats with surgical precision. Her investigation had led her to nexus through financial records and communication patterns that suggested the company was far more than a cybersecurity firm. Government contracts worth hundreds of millions, payments to shell companies across dozens of countries, technology transfers that made no sense for a legitimate business. But Vincent Cross was careful, probably too careful to be caught through conventional investigation. That's why Marcus Webb was so valuable, a former insider with access to internal documents and technical knowledge of how the system actually worked. Rosa adjusted her radio earpiece as her partner, Detective James Liu, reported from his position. Near the Nexus building, Subject Chen arrived at work 20 minutes late, appears agitated. She's been standing at her office window for the past 10 minutes, not engaging with computer. Through her binoculars, Rosa watched Nora Chen's face as Marcus Webb explained something that was clearly disturbing her. The young woman's expression shifted from skepticism to horror, her hands trembling as she handled documents Webb had brought. "Martinez, we've got movement." Liu's voice carried new urgency. 3 black SUVs just pulled up, corporate security teams, armed and coordinated. They're heading for the building. Rosa felt her pulse spike. Vincent Cross had discovered the meeting, which meant both Webb and Chen were in immediate danger. She started her engine, mind racing through tactical options. Webb had been living underground for months, but Chen was completely exposed. Her family, her apartment, her entire life within Vincent's reach. Her phone rang. Unknown number, but she recognized the voice immediately. "Detective Martinez, this is Vincent Cross. I believe we should talk." "About what, Mr. Cross?" "About the former employee who's been feeding you fabricated evidence, and the innocent young woman he's about to destroy with his paranoid delusions." Vincent's tone was reasonable, almost concerned. "Miss Chen is a brilliant analyst who deserves better than being manipulated by a mentally unstable conspiracy theorist." Through her binoculars, Rosa watched Nora Chen stand abruptly from the coffee shop table, backing away from Marcus Webb as if he'd become dangerous. Her body language had shifted completely. Where moments before she'd seemed engaged and horrified, now she appeared afraid of Webb himself. "What did you do?" "I simply provided Miss Chen with the truth about Mr. Webb's condition, his psychiatric records, the restraining orders filed by former colleagues, the pattern of harassment that led to his dismissal. She's a rational person. Detective. When presented with facts rather than fantasy, she makes logical decisions." Rosa watched helplessly as Nora Chen walked quickly toward the coffee shop exit, leaving Marcus Webb alone at the table with his evidence spread before him. Webb's shoulders sagged as he realized he'd lost another potential ally. "You're manipulating her. I'm protecting her, just as I've protected dozens of employees from Webb's increasingly unstable attempts to recruit them for his vendetta against my company. The man is dangerous, detective, and you're enabling his harassment of innocent people." The call ended, leaving Rosa staring at the coffee shop where Marcus Webb was hastily gathering his documents. She had a choice to make: intervene and blow her cover, or let Vincent Cross's psychological manipulation continue unchallenged. Her radio crackled. "Martinez, Chen is heading back to Nexus." She looked shaken but determined. 3 more vehicles have arrived at the building. Looks like a full security lockdown. Rosa made her decision. She drove across the street and entered the coffee shop just as Webb was preparing to leave. Up close, she could see the toll months of living in hiding had taken. Hollow cheeks, prematurely grey hair, eyes that darted constantly toward exits and windows. "Mr. Webb, I'm Detective Rosa Martinez, NYPD. I think we need to talk. Webb looked up, his expression cycling through surprise, suspicion, and desperate hope. You're the one who's been investigating Nexus. Among other things, I just watched Vincent Cross destroy your attempt to reach Miss Chen with a single phone call. How did he do it? Behavioral prediction algorithms combined with real-time psychological profiling. He knows exactly what buttons to push, what fears to exploit, what evidence to present to make someone doubt their own judgment. Webb's voice carried the exhaustion of someone who'd been fighting a losing battle for too long. Nora probably received a perfectly crafted message explaining why I can't be trusted, complete with documentation that looks completely legitimate. Can you prove that? I can prove everything. Financial records, technical specifications, client communications, victim profiles. I have enough evidence to bring down not just Nexus, but the entire network of companies and agencies that use their technology. Webb pulled out an encrypted drive, holding it like a talisman, but evidence is useless if no one with power is willing to act on it. Rosa studied his face, seeing beyond the paranoia and desperation to the man he'd once been. Someone who'd believed in justice and had sacrificed everything to expose the truth. What would you need to get Miss Chen back? Time, access, and protection for her family, while she decides whether to help us. Webb's laugh was bitter. All things that Vincent Cross can prevent with a few keystrokes and phone calls. Through the coffee shop window, Rosa could see the Nexus building looming over the city like a black monument to corporate power. Somewhere in that tower, a brilliant young woman was being carefully molded into an instrument of surveillance and control, her potential perverted to serve a system she didn't even fully understand. Mr. Webb, I'm going to make you an offer. Complete immunity, witness protection, and a federal task force with the resources to investigate Vincent Cross properly. In exchange, I need you to help me save Nora Chen before it's too late. For the first time in months, Marcus Webb smiled, not the bitter expression of a broken man, but the determined grin of someone who'd just been given one last chance to fight back. Part 5. The Price of Freedom. 3 weeks later, Nora Chen stood in Vincent Cross's office at midnight, watching him pace behind his desk like a caged predator. The city sprawled below them, millions of lights representing lives that hung in the balance of the conversation they were about to have. You disappoint me, Nora. Vincent's voice carried a mix of hurt and menace that made her skin crawl. After everything I've done for you, everything I've given you, you choose to believe the lies of a disturbed ex-employee and a desperate police detective. The wire taped to her chest felt like it was burning her skin, but she forced herself to remain calm. Detective Martinez was listening from a van 3 blocks away, recording every word that would either save thousands of lives or seal her own fate. I saw the code, Vincent. I know what the behavioral prediction algorithms really do. Nora's voice was steadier than she felt. You're not preventing crimes, you're creating them, pushing people towards suicide, destroying careers, manipulating elections. How many people have died because of your greater good? Vincent stopped, pacing, his expression shifting to something almost tender. Do you know why I chose you, Nora? It wasn't just your technical skills, though they're extraordinary. It was because you think like me, willing to see beyond conventional morality to the larger picture. I'm nothing like you, aren't you? You cracked the Hartwell encryption knowing it might expose corruption, regardless of who got hurt. You accepted my job offer knowing something wasn't quite right because you needed the money. You've spent weeks building algorithms that you suspected had darker purposes because the work was intellectually fascinating. He moved closer, his voice dropping to an intimate whisper. We're both willing to compromise our principles when the stakes are high enough. Nora felt the truth of his words like a physical blow. Every decision that had led her to this moment had involved choosing pragmatism over ethics, survival over integrity. The difference was that Vincent had made peace with that choice while she was still fighting it.